All right, let's just jump right in. Picture this. You've been zapped back in time, and not just to any old past, but to the one civilization that, for some reason, is always on everyone's mind, ancient Rome. But could you actually live it? Or, let's be real, could you even survive it? We're about to find out.
So the good news is you made it in one piece. The bad news? You've landed smack dab in the year 250 AD, right in the middle of something called the Crisis of the Third Century. And trust me, it's got that name for a reason. This is not the glorious Rome you see in movies. This is a chaotic, messy, and frankly, terrifying time to be alive.
So, you might be asking, how did things get so bad? Well, it all kicked off back in 235 AD. The emperor, Severus Alexander, thought it would be a good idea to pay off some Germanic invaders instead of fighting them. His generals, they disagreed. So much so that they made a direct deposit of a knife into his neck. After that, the empire just spiraled. New emperors were coming and going like one-night stands, and the whole military just broke down into one civil war after another.
And where do you appear? Of course, right in the middle of the Colosseum. Now, normally this would be a death sentence, but because the empire's in total crisis mode, they're not really holding big events. So after a short, and surprisingly violent, scuffle with a local, you can probably just walk right out the front door.
That little fight you just had makes you realize you're starving. I mean, sure, the big problems in Rome were disease and war and all that, but right now, your number one, top-of-the-list problem is that rumbling in your stomach. You need to find some food, fast.
So, what's on the menu? Well, the most interesting thing here is what's not on the menu. Usually, Romans had a pretty decent diet, but with all the civil wars, farms are being destroyed and trade routes are cut off. The whole food supply is just broken. That means your choices are super limited, especially when it comes to meat. It's so bad that malnutrition is sweeping across the poorer parts of the empire. So yeah, beggars can't be choosers.
Hey, on the bright side, you managed to get a little bit of coin from that guy you fought back in the Colosseum, but don't get too excited. See, to pay for all these wars, the emperors started cheating. They minted new coins with less and less silver and gold, mixing in cheaper metals. This kicked off insane inflation, which means the money in your hand is worth way less than it should be.
Okay, so you finally get some of that interesting food in your stomach, and your 21st century gut is not having it. Not at all. All of a sudden, you're in a cold sweat. It's an emergency. You need a public restroom like yesterday.
And this is what you find. Welcome to the Foraca, the Roman community turlet. It's exactly what it looks like. A long marble bench with holes carved into it where everyone just does their business shoulder to shoulder. There are no stalls, no privacy, just you and a bunch of new friends. If you're lucky, there's a little stream of water running underneath to carry it all away.
And just when you think it cannot possibly get any worse, you realize there's no toilet paper. Which means, yep, you're going to have to tap your new neighbor, Claudius, on the shoulder and ask him to pass the community wiping tool. And what is that tool, you ask? It's a sea sponge on a stick. And yes, you're supposed to give it a little rinse in that trough of water at your feet before you pass it to the next guy. It's just common courtesy.
Feeling absolutely disgusting, you decide you need to wash away the sins of the city. Literally. So you head to the famous Roman public baths, the Thermae. These were massive social hubs, but the word clean is doing some very heavy lifting here.
So how did a Roman get clean? Well, the process is something else. First, you slather your entire body in scented olive oil. They didn't have soap, remember. Then you take a curved metal scraper called a strigil, and you literally scrape all the oil, sweat, and dirt off your skin. Finally, you hop into a giant warm pool of stagnant water with hundreds of other people who just did the exact same thing. It's debatable how clean anyone ever really got.
As you're walking away from the baths feeling questionably cleaner, here's a little pro tip. Always look up. It was totally normal for people to just empty their chamber pots right out the window, down onto the street below. So it's raining cats and, well, you get it.
All of this filth and lack of sanitation leads to one inevitable outcome: disease. And during your time in Rome, a really nasty one is going around. They call it the Plague of Cyprian, and at its absolute worst, it was killing an estimated 5,000 Romans per day.
And the symptoms? They were the stuff of nightmares. According to a bishop named Cyprian, who wrote it all down, people had constant vomiting and diarrhea, their eyes were bloodshot, and, get this, some people's limbs would apparently putrefy and just fall off. To this day, historians still aren't 100% sure what it was.
maybe Ebola, maybe a really bad strain of smallpox.
The effect on the empire was absolutely devastating. Take the city of Alexandria in Egypt, for example. In just about a decade, its population dropped by a staggering 62%. People were either dying or just fleeing for their lives. This plague crippled the empire. It wrecked the military, and it caused huge famines because there was no one left to work the farms.
So let's do a quick recap of your situation. You're broke, you're surrounded by a terrifying mystery plague, and the city is basically falling apart. You need to get a job, and in this economy, there's pretty much only one place that's hiring.
That's right, the Roman army. A local recruiter gives you a quick once-over. The checklist is pretty simple. Got to be male, between 17 and 23 years old, at least 5'7", and in decent shape. If you tick all those boxes, congratulations, you're in.
Now I know what you're thinking. You're picturing yourself as some glorious, high-ranking centurion with a cool helmet. Yeah, you're going to have to lower those expectations. You're not going to be a commander. You are going to be a standard-issue foot soldier, the muscle, the grunt.
After months of the most brutal training you can imagine, learning combat, marching, formations, you finally earned yourself a special new title, Javelin Fodder. But hey, chin up. At least you get some free gear.
And here is your brand new taxpayer-funded kit. Your main weapon is the Gladius, a 24-inch short sword perfect for stabbing. You also get a Pugio dagger for, emergencies. And the Pilum, that's a javelin you throw once to either kill someone or, more likely, get stuck in their shield and weigh it down. For protection, you've got chainmail, a big wooden shield called a scutum, and a helmet to protect your melon. So you're trained, you're geared up, and now you're ready to fight for the glory of Rome. It's time to march. Your first deployment is to the front lines out west. And because it's the year 250, your enemy on that western border is a particularly nasty one, the Goths. These are the guys who have been giving Rome a massive headache for years, and now it's your job to go deal with them. Think about it. You've somehow made it through political collapse, famine, insane inflation, disgusting sanitation, and a world-ending plague. You survived the city. But the real question, the one that matters now, is can you survive the Goths?